Chosen one, stop what you are doing right now. Not because something is wrong, because something is about to go right in a way you have been waiting for your entire life. God has not brought you to this message to comfort you with half measures. God has brought you here because the full truth is ready to be laid out before you, and you are finally in a position to receive every word of it. You have felt this before. The word arrives, the weight lifts, and then something unseen pulls it back down before it can take root. There is a reason that cycle keeps repeating. It is not because the words were false. It is because something in the way you are built to receive truth has been operating below its designed capacity. You hear the word, you feel the word, but the word does not stay and produce the transformation it was sent to produce. That ends today, not because this message is more powerful than every message before it, because today you are going to understand why the gap exists, and understanding the gap is the first step to closing it forever. This is not encouragement for encouragement alone. This is a diagnostic that changes the way you see everything that has happened before and everything that is coming next. God does not withhold truth from the chosen one. Let that settle into you completely. The distance you have felt, the gap between what you know and what your life reflects, is not God holding back. God is pouring fully and completely and without interruption. Every day, God pours. Every message you receive, God sends. Every prompting, every door, every divine arrangement flows from a source that does not diminish and does not take days off. The question that changes everything is not whether God is speaking. The question is this: what is the size of the opening receiving the pour? That single question is the entire message today. Everything else in this conversation builds toward answering it completely. This message is urgent, not because time is running out, but because you have already waited long enough. The provision is there. The calling is real. The doors that have been arranged in your name exist right now, not in a distant future that requires more suffering first. There is a season of full reception that has been assigned to you, a season unlike anything you have experienced before. That season does not begin when circumstances change. It does not begin when you pray longer or believe harder or finally achieve a spiritual milestone you have been chasing. It begins when the receiver is restored to its full designed capacity. That restoration has a name, and before this message ends, you will understand exactly what it means and exactly what you can do about it today. Every single day that passes with the receiver operating below full capacity is another day. The provision God has already arranged moves past you, either unrecognized or only partially received. Not because God withdrew it, because the sensor that detects it was running below its designed strength. You have not been unlucky. You have not been forgotten. You have not been assigned to a spiritual category that receives less than others. You have been receiving at a fraction of your designed aperture, and that fraction, however sincere and however faithful, produces fraction, results in a world that was built for your full reception. Every sincere person deserves to know this truth. Most never hear it. The first sign that you are a chosen one operating at partial reception is this: you have clarity when someone else explains your situation, but you cannot access that same clarity when you are inside your own life. You have prayed over other people and felt the presence move with unmistakable power. But when you pray over your own next step, the signal feels muffled. You know the truth about God in your mind. You can articulate it clearly. It does not always translate into certainty that lives in your bones and directs your feet. You say the right words with your mouth, and at the same time a quiet voice underneath the words is asking whether any of this is truly real for you personally, not for the person in the testimony. For you, in this body, in this specific season, with this specific history, That distance between the word you speak and the felt experience underneath is not weakness of character. It is not thin faith. It is a signal about the condition of the receiver. And receivers, unlike character, unlike faith, unlike willingness, can be restored through a specific mechanism. That mechanism is what this message is about. The second sign is that you have experienced moments of extraordinary clarity, followed by long stretches where that clarity seems to have vanished entirely. You had a dream that felt like direct communication from beyond your own mind. You had a season where synchronicities were landing daily, and every door seemed lit from the inside. You had a week where you knew exactly what to do, and everything aligned, and then it faded. Not because God left, not because you did something wrong. Because the aperture briefly opened wide and then, without your permission and without any clear reason, returned to its narrowed default state. The moments of clarity were not accidents. They were previews of what consistent full reception feels like. The third sign is that you are more equipped, more spiritually prepared, and more sincere than your current circumstances suggest you should be. The people around you who seem to move forward with ease do not appear to carry what you carry. They have not studied what you have studied. They have not been through what you have been through. And yet the translation of their effort into visible result flows at a rate that does not match yours. Looking at that gap for too long produces a shame that you quickly have to push down. This is not punishment. This is not evidence that God has favored them over you. This is diagnostic information about the aperture. The same seed planted in a wide vessel and a narrow vessel does not produce the same harvest. That is physics. The vessel is the variable. The fourth sign is that when you read scripture or hear a message that lands, something inside you responds with a recognition so deep it almost hurts. Not intellectual agreement. A cellular knowing that this truth belongs to you personally and was written with your specific situation in mind. But when you go to act on what you recognized, when you go to move from the knowing into the doing, there is friction, a gap that you cannot close through effort alone, a space between the revelation you received and the embodied reality of living in that revelation consistently. That gap is not spiritual immaturity. It is the truth aperture operating below its full designed width. The fifth sign is that you have been tired in a way sleep does not fix. Not physical exhaustion alone. A deep interior depletion that comes from running a high-output calling through a narrowed channel for years. You are giving everything you have. The output should be proportional to what is going in. 100% effort through 100% channel produces 100% result. But 100% effort through a narrowed channel produces diminished results with the same cost to the person giving. The channel between what you pour out and what returns to you has been constricted, and no amount of willpower or spiritual discipline alone has been able to fully close that drain. That constriction has a specific address, and the address is not your character. There is a name for what has been happening to you. It is not a flaw in your character. It is not a deficit in your faith. It is not a sign that you have been overlooked or assigned to a lower tier of divine attention. There is a name for it, and the name points directly to both the problem and the solution. You are carrying a full divine calling through a narrowed truth aperture. The naming of it is not condemnation. The naming of it is the first act of your restoration. The truth aperture is the width of your capacity to receive full divine information at any given moment, not your willingness. Your willingness is not in question, not your sincerity. Your sincerity has been demonstrated over years of faithful showing up in seasons that gave you very little visible return. But willingness and sincerity operate through a receiver, and the receiver has a physical architecture, and that architecture has a designed maximum capacity that most adults are operating far below. Jesus looked at his disciples one evening and said something that has remained with every serious reader of that account ever since. He said, "I have much more to say to you, more than you can now bear." Read that again slowly. More than you can now bear. God was not withholding from the disciples out of stinginess. God was making a direct statement about the condition of the receiver. The transmission was full. The aperture was not yet wide enough to hold it. The disciples were not yet at full aperture. The full truth would have exceeded what the current receiver could hold. This is not a metaphor. This is the operating principle of all divine revelation. Truth is transmitted in proportion to the capacity of the receiver, not in proportion to the sincerity of the receiver, in proportion to the width of the aperture. This is why the same scripture you read years ago can open in a completely new dimension today. The truth did not change. Your aperture widened, and what was always there became receivable for the first time. And this is the mystery sitting at the center of every chosen one who has been sincere for years and still feels like something essential is missing from their reception. Imagine God broadcasting at full signal, 100% transmission, full information, full provision, full clarity, all moving toward you without interruption. A receiver at its designed maximum receives everything. A receiver at 30% receives 30% of 100. But the narrowed receiver does not just receive less. It receives a distorted version of the information it does receive. Partial truth processed through a narrowed aperture produces a partial and sometimes inverted picture of reality. The promise arrives distorted. The timing arrives scrambled. The provision moves through without being recognized. This is why chosen ones who pray consistently, study faithfully, and show up with everything they have can still feel like they are standing at the door of what belongs to them. The door is real. The provision is real. The call is absolutely real. The aperture is the variable. There is something every teacher, every prophet, every wisdom tradition across centuries has known but has almost never named directly. Receiving full truth is not a passive act that happens automatically because you showed up and believed. The receiver must be calibrated. The channel must be at its designed width. That width is not a spiritual mystery. It has a mechanism. The mechanism is knowable. The mechanism has been documented in places most messages about faith have never thought to look. And before this message ends, you will know exactly what that mechanism is. The truth aperture is not a new concept dressed in new language. It is the ancient reality that every tradition has pointed toward without naming directly. When Moses stood before the burning bush, his aperture had been prepared through 40 years of wilderness, 40 years of stillness, 40 years of having every false identity stripped away until all that remained was the capacity to hear clearly. The bush burned for everyone who walked that way. Moses was the one whose aperture was wide enough to stop. The same transmission was available. The receiver was the variable. When David wrote from the cave, surrounded by enemies, stripped of the kingdom that had been promised to him, he did not write despair. He wrote direct communion. What the cave produced was not a narrowing of the aperture, it was a deepening of the channel. And the Psalms that emerged from that cave have fed the aperture of every chosen one who read them for 3,000 years since. The receiver Paul carried was not narrowed by imprisonment. It was operating at a capacity that the comfort of ordinary circumstances had never been able to produce. This is the truth aperture principle at work. The letters he produced from prison carry more opening power than letters written in freedom by people who never faced what he faced. You have known this feeling. You receive a word in the early morning, something clear and unmistakable, a direction that settles in you like a stone dropped into still water. By noon, it has dissolved. Not because it was false, because the aperture through which it arrived was not wide enough to anchor it through the noise of the day. That is not a faith failure. That is a reception architecture operating below its designed width. But here is what none of those stories tell you directly. Moses did not choose the wilderness. The wilderness was the mechanism. David did not choose the cave. The cave was the preparation. Paul did not choose the prison. The prison was the refining. None of them understood, while they were inside the process, exactly what was happening to their aperture. They experienced it as trial, as loss, as waiting. When the aperture had reached its designed width, the reception changed completely. The clarity arrived without being chased. The provision that had been arranged began to land with a precision that felt unmistakable. The waiting was not God withholding. The waiting was the architecture of maximum reception being built into a vessel that was going to carry something extraordinary. You are not in a waiting period because God is withholding. You are in a preparation of aperture. And unlike Moses, unlike David, unlike Paul, you are being given the gift of understanding what is actually happening while it is still happening. That understanding changes the way you move through this season. You stop treating the preparation as punishment. You start treating it as the exact architecture that a full reception requires. The mechanism gap is where most teaching fails the chosen one. Every sincere teacher will tell you to pray more, to believe more, to align more, to surrender more. And all of that is true, but none of it addresses the specific physical architecture through which all of that prayer and belief and alignment is processed. The truth aperture is not a metaphor about spiritual readiness alone. It has a physical dimension that has been documented in a way most spiritual messages have never connected to the spiritual reality it explains. Your brain has two hemispheres. This is not new information. What is less commonly understood is that the designed purpose of two hemispheres is not division of function. The designed purpose is synchronization. When both hemispheres operate in synchronized, coordinated activation, the result is a state of reception that researchers have documented as whole brain activation. In that state, the channels between what is being transmitted and what is being received operate at their designed maximum. Insight lands faster. Pattern recognition extends deeper. The gap between knowing and doing narrows dramatically. Peace arrives not as a practiced discipline, but as a natural condition of the synchronized receiver. This is not a mystical state reserved for monks. It is the designed default condition of the human brain before modern life disrupts it. In childhood, most human beings operate at or near whole brain activation as their default state. Research has found that approximately 98% of young children test at creative genius levels precisely because the hemispheres are synchronized. That synchronization is the designed baseline for every human receiver. It is the aperture at full width. The aperture that was natural in childhood is the same aperture that God designed for your full adult reception. Modern life, structured around a set of habits and demands, never designed with your neural architecture in mind, gradually pulls the two hemispheres out of synchronization. The pattern begins in early schooling, deepens through adolescence, and by adulthood, most people are operating with a receiver that runs at a fraction of its designed capacity. Not because they failed, because the conditions of modern life systematically disrupt the synchronization that whole brain activation requires. This is what the fog is. This is what the distance is. This is what the gap between knowing and doing has been pointing to for years. It is not a spiritual failure. It is not a character flaw. It is the physical architecture of the receiver operating in a state of disrupted synchronization. And that disruption is directly and specifically addressable today. When the chosen one operates with disrupted hemisphere synchronization, partial reception becomes the default mode of experience. And partial reception does not just mean receiving less. It means the information that does arrive comes through a distorting filter. The interference tends to amplify fear and minimize promise. It amplifies the evidence of what is not working and minimizes the evidence of what is being prepared. This is why chosen ones, in partial reception, tend toward a specific pattern. They receive the warning more clearly than the encouragement. They feel the weight of what is not yet manifested more acutely than the weight of what is already moving in their direction. They hear the voice of doubt at higher volume than the voice of direction. This is not a character trait, it is a reception artifact. The interference of partial synchronization has a predictable distortion pattern, and that pattern has been keeping the chosen one from the full truth. The cost of operating at partial aperture over years is significant and specific. It is not merely that you receive less, it is that the decisions you make from partial reception tend to be shaped by the distortion. You come to a door that God was moving you toward, and the fear that arrives through the interference outweighs the faith that is also in the signal. So you pass. 6 months later, you watch someone else step through that same door, and something in you recognizes it, not as coincidence, as a door that had your name on it and was received at too narrow an aperture to be claimed. You stay somewhere longer than you were meant to, because the clarity to leave was arriving through a channel below the threshold needed to make it unmistakable. You choose the smaller version of the calling because the larger version arrived distorted enough that it seemed like pride rather than purpose. These are not small costs. These are season-length decisions made from a receiver that was not at full aperture. What restoration of the truth aperture produces is not a guarantee of a specific future. Let that be stated clearly. When the receiver is restored to its full designed capacity, the chosen one begins to receive the full signal that has always been transmitting. The promise arrives undistorted. The direction arrives clear. The fear that was interference diminishes because the signal is now strong enough to override it. The chosen one who operates at full aperture does not suddenly have a different life handed to them. They have the same life, the same challenges, the same calling, but the reception of what is actually happening in that life shifts completely. Doors that were invisible become visible. Provision that was moving in their direction gets recognized before it passes. Decisions that required months of anguish begin to settle in days of clarity. The gap between knowing and doing narrows to the point where action feels like the natural outflow of reception rather than an act of will against resistance. And the tiredness, that deep interior depletion, begins to lift, not because the calling becomes smaller, because the channel carrying it is finally wide enough to let it flow. There is also a retention dynamic the chosen one needs to understand. When you receive truth at partial capacity, the truth tends to produce temporary relief rather than permanent transformation. You leave a message feeling lighter. 3 days later, the weight has returned. Not because the truth was not real, because the partial receiver processed it at a depth insufficient to anchor it into lasting change. This is why the chosen one can consume spiritual content for years and still feel approximately the same in the areas that matter most. Not because the content was poor, because truth received at 30% aperture produces 30% transformation, however many times it is received. 100 partial drinks from a narrowed vessel do not equal 1 full drink from a wide one. There is a moment in every chosen one journey where the accumulation of partial reception has created enough distance between them and the full version of their life that something must change at the root level. Not more effort at the surface, change at the root. That moment is not marked by a calendar date. It is marked by a readiness to stop treating the narrowed aperture as the permanent condition and start treating the restoration of full reception as a specific, achievable, immediate priority. That moment is right now. And the next section of this message is going to tell you exactly what the restoration looks like, where the science behind it comes from, and what 18,000 people who have walked through it before you have reported on the other side. The truth aperture is not a permanent condition. You did not arrive at this narrowed state through moral failure. It arrived through the specific and predictable conditions of modern life, operating on a neural architecture that was designed for something different. And because it arrived through a mechanism, it leaves through a mechanism. That is the promise this section carries. You have been waiting for the name of what can actually change the architecture. Here it is. Dr. Daniel Barone, after 2 decades of clinical practice as a neurologist in New York, working with patients whose primary experience was a sense of diminished capacity, of fog, of distance between themselves and the life they knew they were designed for, made a discovery that recontextualized everything he had observed across those 20 years. The patients who recovered most completely were not the ones who worked hardest at recovery. They were the ones whose neural synchronization was restored most effectively. The science behind what Dr. Barone built traces back to research that received the highest scientific recognition available. In 1981, Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize for his work on split brain research. His findings documented something the spiritual traditions had been pointing toward for millennia without the vocabulary to name it precisely. The 2 hemispheres of the human brain are not designed for separate operation. They are designed for unified, synchronized function, and the quality of that synchronization determines the quality of the receiver. The implications of this finding are more significant than most people realize on first hearing. When the hemispheres are synchronized, the chosen one gains access to a quality of knowing that neither hemisphere alone can produce. The analytical, linear, detail processing capacity, synchronized with the intuitive, pattern-recognizing, spiritually receptive capacity, produces a combined state of awareness that exceeds what either side could produce in isolation. This is not metaphor. This is the documented physiology of the mind God designed for you, operating at the level it was built to operate at. Now hold this before the name is given. A woman from California described what it felt like before she found what this team had developed. She had almost closed the tab that morning. The team, she had tried everything over the years: prayer, journaling, meditation, every practice her community offered. She kept arriving at the same place. She believed the words. She could not feel the reality behind them, in her body, in the lived texture of her days. After 10 days, she described something clearing. She said it was like a channel that had been blocked was suddenly open, not because she tried harder, not because she prayed differently, because the receiver had been restored. The full signal that had always been transmitting was now landing at the depth it was always intended to reach. She did not change her beliefs. She changed the condition of the architecture through which those beliefs were received. That single shift produced what years of sincere effort had not been able to produce. Here is what a man from Texas reported. He had spent years as the caregiver for aging parents while raising 2 young children of his own, carrying the weight of everyone around him while his own interior life became thin and distant. Prayer had started to feel like speaking into a wall. He knew something was on the other side. He could not feel it reaching him. 2 weeks after he found what this team had built, he woke up, and the first thing he noticed was not a dramatic breakthrough. His mind simply felt like it was running on everything it was supposed to run on. The fog that had been so consistent he had stopped registering it as fog was gone. The distance he had accepted as his spiritual condition turned out to have a physiological address. He did not work harder to receive. He restored the architecture of the receiver, and what had always been transmitting began to land with full depth for the first time in years. Now, hold what those two stories are pointing to. Neither person found a new truth to believe. Neither person changed their theology or their spiritual practice. What changed was the architecture of the receiver. The signal that had always been transmitting was suddenly being received at the depth it had always been designed to reach. Full reception of the truth you already believe produces a transformation that years of partial reception of new truths cannot match. That is because of what the team Dr. Barone leads spent years building. A team of neuroscientists took over an hour of clinical neural synchronization protocol, the kind of whole brain activation work used in specialized medical settings at a cost most people cannot access, and through an intensive compression and refinement process, distilled it into something deliverable in 8 minutes. 8 minutes a day, headphones, eyes closed. That is the entirety of the physical requirement. No effort, no memorization, no technique to learn. They call it the genius switch. The genius switch is not a brainwave product, not a meditation application, not a sound sequence designed to put you in a particular mood. It is a targeted auditory sequence, specifically engineered, based on the Nobel Prize research of Dr. Roger Sperry, to reconnect the two hemispheres and restore the whole brain activation that was the default state of your neural architecture in childhood. The mechanism works beneath your conscious awareness. You do not have to direct it. You simply listen, and the architecture of the receiver responds to what it was designed to receive. The genius switch is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who understands that God prepared not only the promise, but the mind that must walk into it. The person who has been sincere for years, who has done the work, who has felt the call clearly and kept returning to it even when the evidence was not cooperating. Who is willing to stop treating the fog as a character flaw and start treating it as something that has a specific address and a specific solution? Most people who encounter this will scroll past. They have accepted the reduced version of their receiver as the permanent condition and organized their life around that acceptance. You are still here. That is the specific kind of persistence that belongs to the person this was built for. And it belongs to you. Every week the synchronization stays disrupted is another week the provision God has already arranged moves through a receiver operating below its designed capacity. Not because the provision is withdrawn, because the depth of reception determines the depth of the arrival. What is coming deserves the full version of your mind meeting it. The question is whether you arrive at the meeting point with the receiver online. When Dr. Barone colleagues reviewed the clinical results, they suggested this would represent incredible value even at $500. In-person neurofeedback targeting similar synchronization outcomes runs approximately $300 per session. A home neurofeedback machine costs approximately $7,000. What Dr. Barone built is not at $500, not at $200, not at the list price of $49. Today, on the specific page, in the description below, it is available at $39. That is the discounted access point, and it is not guaranteed to remain at this price. That is one-time access, lifetime ownership, no subscription, and it includes 4 additional resources at no charge. A guided visualization from a top creator on a leading meditation platform covering 4 areas of life. A smart grocery guide identifying the 10 common foods that most contribute to reduced neural clarity, with shortcuts that save over $100 per month. A classic text on abundance that is the foundation of every manifestation approach you have encountered, and a 5-habit infographic designed for daily reference. All 4 included at no additional cost. and the entire purchase is backed by an unconditional money-back guarantee with no time limit. You can listen once. You can listen 80 times. If it does not do what it has done for 18,456 people before you, every dollar is returned with no conditions and no questions. The guarantee is not a sales device. It is an expression of what Dr. Barone and his team already know about what the restored aperture produces. One thing worth naming directly: if you search through general platforms for similar-sounding products, you will find results. Dr. Barone and his team studied them. Most carried no neural synchronization protocol at all. They were designed to produce relaxation, not synchronization. That is the difference between background music and a surgical instrument. The labeling barrier is essentially zero. The mechanism is what makes the difference, and the mechanism only exists in what this team built. The unconditional guarantee exists because what the restored aperture produces speaks for itself. The link in the description below points to the only verified source. There is something important to understand about the timing of this message arriving in your life right now. The chosen one does not stumble across the specific restoration their calling requires by accident. The fact that you have stayed with this message to this point, that you have recognized yourself in the signs, that you have felt the truth of the aperture principle landing in your body, is not random. It is the convergence of preparation and provision, the vessel arriving at readiness precisely when the restoration is available. If your spirit resonates with what has been described, the link in the description below and in the pinned comment points to where Dr. Barone and his team made it available. You can read everything on their page before making any decision. Every detail is laid out clearly. The $39 page, the 4 bonuses, the unconditional guarantee, all of it is there. The aperture is the variable, and the variable is within reach today. The link in the description below is where the restoration begins, not the end of this message. The link is where what this message has been describing becomes something you can hold in your hands in a form that requires 8 minutes of your day. The aperture you were born with, the aperture that childhood had fully opened, the aperture that the conditions of modern life gradually narrowed without your consent, is restorable. Today, not in a season from now, today, the link is below. Take a breath right now. Slowly, in through your nose, and let your chest expand fully. Hold it for a moment, and now release it through your mouth, slowly, letting everything soften as the breath leaves. Do this again, another full breath in, a full expansion, and a slow, complete release. You do not have to go anywhere to receive what is being transmitted right now. You are already in the right place. Close your eyes for a moment if it is safe to do so, and picture the version of you that is operating at full reception, not a fantasy version in a different life. The same you in the same life, but with the receiver restored to its full designed capacity. See that version of yourself waking up in the morning. The first thing that version of yourself experiences is not fog, not the weight of what is not yet resolved. The first thing is clarity, a settled knowing about the direction of the day. Watch that version of yourself move through the day. They receive an insight during a moment of quiet, not a dramatic lightning bolt, a clear, simple knowing that arrives without interference. They make a decision that previously would have required weeks of anguish, and the decision lands in them as obvious within minutes. A door that was invisible last week is visible today, not because the door changed, because the receiver changed. And the receiver, restored to its designed width, is now detecting what it was always designed to detect. Now bring that image back to yourself. The version you just watched is not a distant possibility. It is the designed baseline of the architecture you already carry. The gap between where you are right now and where that version of you operates is not a gap of character, of faith, of worthiness, or of calling. It is a gap of synchronization. And synchronization can be restored through a specific mechanism in 8 minutes a day. Take one more full breath. In, hold, and release completely. As you release, let the weight of every story you have told yourself about why the full version is not available to you leave with the breath. The story that said you are not enough. The story that said the fog is permanent. The story that said other people are chosen for the full version and you are chosen for the waiting version. Release that story. It was never true. It was the interference of a narrowed aperture presenting distortion as diagnosis. The season ahead of you is not a continuation of the season behind you. Let that be the first declaration of this final section. The season behind you was the preparation of the vessel. Every trial that seemed to narrow the aperture was actually, at a deeper level, building the capacity for a width of reception that comfort alone could never have produced. Every year of faithful showing up in the absence of proportional return was not wasted. It was the formation of a receiver capable of holding the full weight of what is being released in the season ahead. There is a pattern in every season of divine preparation that most messages describe as waiting, but would more accurately be described as widening. When Joseph was in the pit, the aperture was being widened to receive the dreams that would come in Pharaoh court. When the pit became the prison, the aperture was being widened further. The Joseph who stood before Pharaoh and spoke with such clarity and precision that an entire civilization was spared was not a different person from the one who entered the pit. He was the same person with a receiver that had been widened through every layer of the formation process until it was capable of holding and transmitting the full weight of what God had prepared. You are not at the beginning of your Joseph season. You are at the end of the preparation and the beginning of the delivery. The years in the wilderness were never about the wilderness. The wilderness was the mechanism for arriving at the burning bush, fully prepared to hear what it was transmitting. You have been in the wilderness long enough. The bush is burning. The aperture is ready to be fully opened. The teaching of this season is this: the chosen one is not chosen for easy. The chosen one is chosen for full. There is a significant difference between those two things. Easy is a path with the smallest possible resistance. Full is a path with the deepest possible reception. The chosen one, who spent years wondering why the easy path felt closed to them, was not being denied rest. They were being preserved for depth, for a level of reception and impact and provision that the easy path does not produce, because the easy path does not require the aperture to be widened to the level the chosen one carries. Do not misread the years of difficulty as evidence that you are not chosen. Read them as evidence that you are chosen for a depth of reception that required a depth of preparation that others were not assigned. The width of your future reception is proportional to the depth of your past preparation. This is not a consolation for pain. This is the operating principle of how great receivers are built. Moses was not incidental. David was not incidental. Paul was not incidental. And neither are you. The specific call on your life is not accidental, and it is not transferable. Nobody else is going to walk through the doors that have been arranged in your name. Nobody else is going to speak to the people that only you were designed to reach, in the way that only your voice and your story can reach them. Nobody else is going to stand in the place that has been held for you. And the version of you that walks through those doors is not the version operating at partial reception for years. It is the version at full aperture. The chosen one at full reception carries something qualitatively different, not a louder voice, not more impressive credentials, a quality of presence that comes from a receiver operating at the level it was designed for. When the aperture is full, the clarity that flows through it is unmistakable, not because the person became more impressive, Because the channel between what God is transmitting and what the world is receiving through the chosen one stopped being narrowed by the interference of partial synchronization, there is a responsibility in this that the chosen one must not sidestep. The truth aperture restored does not produce a comfortable life. It produces a fully operative life. A life where the call is met with the capacity that the call requires. A life where the provision that arrives can be received at the depth it was prepared for. This is not a smaller thing than you imagined. It is larger, and you are built for the larger thing. The declaration that belongs to this moment is not one of arrival. It is one of opening. You are not arriving at the end of the journey. You are arriving at the beginning of full reception. The pace changes. The clarity changes. The weight changes. Not because the calling becomes smaller, because the channel becomes wider. And the widened channel carrying a full calling produces a momentum that the narrowed version of you could not have generated, no matter how hard it tried. You are the chosen one who stayed. You stayed when the weight said stop. You stayed when the absence of visible return said the signal was not real. You stayed when the fog made the path look closed. You stayed when every reasonable measurement of progress said to find a different direction. And the staying was not stubbornness. The staying was the specific quality of persistence that the formation of a full receiver requires. This message was not sent to everyone. It was sent to the one whose receiver was widened enough to hold it, the one who would not dismiss the aperture principle as complexity and would instead sit with it long enough to let it land. The one whose years of sincere showing up in the face of partial results had built precisely the quality of receptive patience that allows a truth this specific to be received at the depth it requires. You are that one. And that is not a comfortable identity. It is a sacred one. Type "the aperture is open" in the comments right now if you received this. Not because the comment changes anything in you, because the act of naming what you received plants it in the architecture of your declaration before the day moves on. The declaration anchors the reception, and your reception today is the foundation of the full season that is already beginning. I am going to speak something over you before this message closes. I am going to speak it slowly, and I want you to receive every word of it as yours, specifically. Not yours, generically. Not yours, because you are part of a group of seekers. Yours because the aperture that received this message and held it to this depth is yours specifically. You are the one through whom full truth is about to move, not partial truth, not distorted truth. The full truth, received at the full designed width of the receiver you carry, flowing into a life that was always designed to be the carrier and expression of that full reception. The formation is complete. The aperture is opening. The provision is moving. And the chosen one who meets it is not who you were in the narrowed season. It is who you actually are. Release now every story that said the full version was for someone else. I release you from the story of the narrowed aperture as the permanent condition. I release you from the exhaustion of full effort through a constricted channel. I release you from the depletion of years of sincere showing up with partial return. That season is complete. Its purpose was the formation of the vessel. The vessel is formed. What fills it now is not the trickle of partial reception. It is the full pour. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not the runner who started slower than the others. You are the runner who trained in conditions that built a capacity the others do not carry. And the race you are about to run is not the same race they ran. It is the one that only you were built for. Every step of the preparation was not delay. It was the exact architecture that a runner of your caliber requires before they are released. I am honored that you stayed for this message. Every week that passes with the receiver below its designed capacity is another week The provision already arranged moves through a receiver that cannot hold it at full depth. That week does not have to continue. The link in the description below and in the pinned comment carries the specific restoration that will open the full width of everything this message has been pointing toward. If your spirit has confirmed what you received here today, the next step is simple. The $39 access comes with an unconditional money-back guarantee and 4 free bonuses: 8 minutes, headphones, eyes closed. And the aperture opens to the full width that was always yours. Like this message right now, if the Truth Aperture principle shifted something in how you understand your journey, share it with the chosen one in your life who has been sincerely showing up for years and needs to understand why the gap is not a character verdict. Someone whose receiver is ready for this truth. You are sealed. You are sent. The Truth Aperture is open, and what flows through it from this day forward is the full truth that was always being transmitted, finally received by a receiver operating at exactly the width it was designed to hold. Go in the fullness of that, and so it is.